You know what? Sony doesn't remaster enough games. It's like they completely ignore all of their old IPs and really popular franchises. It's ridiculous. And you know what? We gotta fix it. We gotta get the message to Sony. Dear Sony, you have not been remastering the amount of remasters that should be remastered in order to have an adequate number of remasterings. And furthermore, hello? Wait. Sony does remaster games? In light of news that I'm hearing for the first time in the universe of Forever Today, Sony remasters a lot of their old games. And apparently they remastered the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy for PS4, which I totally haven't played yet. So, in light of information that we are now already in light of, Sony is not stopping their remastering spree of games. And there's one game that I hope to God gets remastered sooner than later, especially after the release of the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane trilogy. The game I want to come out next is a remaster of the original Spyro the Dragon trilogy for the PS4. So, in hopes that Sony hears our pleas, I thought I'd review the first game in the Spyro trilogy, Spyro the Dragon. Cool? Cool. Out of all of the famous Sony characters out there, Spyro the Dragon definitely has to be my favorite. I have plentiful memories of watching my family play the original Spyro games when I was a kid, and the second one may have single-handedly been the game to spark my interest in gaming. So, I wanted to experience the beginning of the trilogy firsthand. Now, all nostalgia-clouded memories aside, let's get down to the cold, hard facts. Probably with some more nostalgia-driven stories here and there. The game begins with a little cutscene about how the dragons are all at peace and nothing can ruin that, even the ugly, nasty Nork. Being that Nork gets offended by that, and clearly hasn't looked in a mirror for a couple years, he turns all the gems in the worlds into his minions and crystallizes all the dragons except for Spyro. Therefore, it is Spyro's job to free all the dragons, stop Nork and his minions, and maybe make out with a fairy every now and then. You go to 6 different worlds, including that of Nork himself, and you beat up baddies while collecting stolen treasure. And let me tell ya, along your journey, you get filthy stinkin' rich. There's gems for days in these worlds. And there's your story. There's not much to go off of when the opening cutscene and the in-game lore are taken into account. But hey, that's not bad. The story is nice and simple and does nothing but complement the simple gameplay. Speaking of the gameplay, transitions, they're not as easy as they sound. The gameplay coincides with the story of the game almost to a T. You traverse your way through the levels within 6 different worlds while gathering up gems and of course freeing all of the dragons. There are side objectives like collecting every gem in every world and level or obtaining eggs from egg thieves, but the dragons are your main goal. How do you do all of this stuff? Well, I'm glad you asked, completely nondescript person. Spyro is a pretty nifty dragon if I do say so myself. He's also pretty cute. I mean, who wouldn't want to give this friendly little guy a hug? And then he'd go and you'd probably be dead, but he's still kinda cute. Being that Spyro's a dragon, he has a couple more capabilities beyond walking and jumping like any other platformer. The most important one being that he can glide. After jumping with X, you can initiate a glide by hitting X again. This grants you access to areas you couldn't reach otherwise. No matter what level or world you're in, gliding is useful to you. You can even hit triangle to have an early landing if you overshoot a platform. Ledges, hidden alcoves, long distances, there's nothing glides can't do. Wanna accidentally get Spyro killed? You might want to use a glide for that one. When Spyro takes any kind of damage, his health is determined by his dragonfly companion, Sparks. Spyro has 4 hits before he dies. Or 1 hit in the case of Purple Goop. Sparks changes color depending on how many hits you take. After 1 hit, he turns blue, after 2, he turns green, and then he just straight up vanishes, and then Spyro's straight up dead. In order to regain health, you have to find little critters running around levels and you have to kill them. Then they turn into a pretty butterfly that Sparks eats to regain his health. Okay, I know that was a joke, but holy hell does Sparks' face look terrifying when he eats butterflies. I wish I was joking, but his head just straight up increases to 5 times its original size in 1 second and then shrinks back to normal in the next. It's just freaky. In terms of Spyro's controls, they're nice and responsive, to be frank, although he does have a kind of weird momentum when jumping and sometimes when turning around. But this will rarely ever screw you up as a result. And of course, controlling the glides feels solid too. You can move him around with either the left analog stick or the D-pad. I think it's pretty obvious which one is better though. As much as I like how Spyro feels to control, movement in this game is incredibly hindered by the camera. You can't control it with the right analog stick, but you can control it with R1 and L1. Okay, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound, but it's really sluggish and has a tendency to get caught on walls quite a bit. And this can get really annoying when trying to fight guys on or near ledges. As for Spyro's attacks, he can spit flames with the circle button and you can break into a charge with square. And depending on the enemy, Spyro has to alternate between these two attacks. In some instances, like chasing egg thieves, you need to effectively use both at the same time. All of Spyro's abilities are utilized and potentially overutilized in each level. You can use flames and charges to break open specific boxes, and of course kill enemies. And even when there's nothing to charge into, you can still charge to get around the map faster. And charging for speedy travels is your best friend in this game, because the levels are huge. In the first world they're pretty small and only have about 100 to 200 gems in them. But once you hit World 3, you're going through sprawling environments with up to 500 gems scattered throughout them. And these levels aren't even linear. Unlike that of Crash Bandicoot where you're almost always going in one direction, there's countless different paths to take that always leave you with a reward. Although the boss stages in this game are pretty linear, I will say that they have a lot of secret alcoves with a lot of hidden gems and chests in them. I mean, if you're only aiming to get to the exit, then it's gonna be pretty linear, and pretty boring. But if you're trying to 100% a level, then woo boy, you've got some exploring to do. And some levels give you enhanced abilities that you need to utilize to reach certain areas. You can have your fire breath become more fiery, and your charges can be buffed into supercharges. The powered up fire breath you get from making out with those fairies, as I said earlier, is mainly used for killing metal enemies and breaking metal objects. While the supercharges, oh, the supercharges. This game makes you go absolutely insane with the supercharges. One thing that I really have to say about this game, there is no disappointing level within it. They all show variety, even when they follow suit with the theme of a world. However, these flying levels where you have to collect things in a time limit can go jump off a bridge, cause holy crap they're hard. The ones in the beginning of the game are pretty manageable, but holy hell, the ones in the later worlds feel near impossible. I didn't even try some of the late game flight levels. Look, if I can't get past the one in World 2, then how am I supposed to get past the one in World 5? I'm not. These are just like the time trials in Crash Bandicoot, just a lot less numerous and potentially a lot less difficult, probably. Spyro the Dragon as a whole has a near perfect difficulty in my mind. Every level is easy to get into, but challenging and interesting to complete. Just when you think you've searched everywhere for those last couple of gems, you think outside the box and bam, you found those gems and completed the level. Now, I couldn't have made this video without a couple nostalgia trips here and there. This game was shown to me by my cousins when I was a wee lad, and oh boy did it stick with me. I wasn't even playing the game and it just hit me so hard. Back then I didn't know what it was about it, and to be honest I didn't really care. But now that I look back on it, I really know what sold me on this game from the get-go. The atmosphere. From the minute you start the game to the second you beat Nasty Nork. This game is nothing but fun, colorful, and kinda goofy now that I think about it. One of the final levels of the game is a level where you charge into barrels to launch them at enemies. How is that not even the slightest bit goofy? I was all smiles throughout the whole game. Except for the flight levels and that one level in the treetops. Those are toughies. I vividly remember watching my cousins play and replay this game and the games in the rest of the Spyro trilogy over and over and over again, and just being completely enthralled. The thing that really stayed with me since I first saw the games was the music. Yeah, I remembered some of the levels early on in the game and was quite fond of them, but the music is where it's at. I mean, just listen to them tunes. I could do this for hours. Even this game's graphics are awesome to me. And yeah, I can easily admit that compared to the games of today, this game looks absolutely terrible. But there's even a charm in the outdated graphics. Or at least that's just me. You know, that could be fixed in a remastered version, Sony. Although the graphics aren't great and Spyro's movements aren't always perfectly fluid, there's this charming mix of atmospheric pleasure and inter-level complexity that really draws the player into this game. I love Spyro to the ends of the earth. I named my dog after his companion Sparks, and I've seen every game in the original Spyro trilogy played through at least 5 times. I can't recommend Spyro enough to those who haven't played it before. There's nothing but fun to be had with this purple dragon and his dragonfly companion. And that was Spyro the Dragon for the PS1. This game really is quite dated in the graphics department, but in every other area it really stands its ground even with the releases of today. And guess what? You can get a digital copy of it for the PS3 only for $6. Yeah, I know, I was surprised too. A classic like this reduced to $6. What a shame. Sony, you know what time it is. It's time to unleash the dragon once again. We all want the Spyro the Dragon trilogy remaster, and I pray to God that we get it. I even came up with a name for it. Spyro the Dragon Ripto's Remaster. Heh, Sony might as well hire me now. If Sony isn't producing a Spyro trilogy remaster as of now, they are really missing a huge opportunity to tap into a lot of deeply rooted and well-justified nostalgia. Alright, I gotta make a vow here. If Sony announces a Spyro the Dragon trilogy remaster, then when it comes out, I'm hanging the game case on my wall. I don't care how it looks, or how I would look. Clearly, but I will do it. Thank you guys for watching what is basically a digital love letter to the original Spyro, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hey guys, I really appreciate it if you made it this far, and if you liked what you saw, then leave a like. If you really enjoyed the video and you want to see more of my videos in the future, then feel free to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter for updates and other random stuff. You can watch my Knack review on the left, and you can watch another video of my choosing below it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye everyone.